Good morning, everyone. It is now 10:39 a.m. and on this Friday, the 13th of October, 2023. And I will now recognize Mr. Devin Macaranas to call the roll of the EAGI committee in session this morning.
Senator Selena R. Babauta,
Presente.
Senator Karina L. Magofnia, Senator Paul A. Manglonia, Senator Donald M. Manglonia.
Present.
Madam Chair, 3 members are present, 1 member is absent.
Thank you. With 3 members present, we have established the quorum to conduct today's committee hearing. Senator Karina Magofnia is excused for this morning. This meeting is hereby officially in session. I want to welcome everyone to your Senate chamber. Lokwe para hamzo ni maneega gwanawuzungi Facebook and YouTube. Benvenido para todos hamzo. Gohu si Selena Babauta gohi mumaneneha este EAGI committee. Ni ma-incadga gi constitutions and ni Senate rules para examina iman mapunta siya gini ni administrasyon para cabinet dan lokwe para boards and commission. We will begin our confirmation hearing this morning of Mr. Steve King Mesnin, nominated to represent the 1st Senatorial District, Rhoda. Retired Command Sergeant Major Dolores Pangilinan Kiyoshi to represent the 2nd Senatorial District, Tinian. And also Mr. Jose C. Azuzu to represent the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan and the Northern Islands. And they have been nominated to serve as directors for the Commonwealth Ports Authority Board of Directors. The 3 nominees were simultaneously nominated by Governor Palacios on September 20th, 2023. And before we proceed with the items on the agenda, I would like to make some administrative announcements. First, we appreciate your cooperation and we ask that you please silence all your electronic devices at this time. Also, if for any reason we need to take a recess or a break, we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Facebook will continue to stream live so that people out there can see exactly what's going on in the chambers. Next is the introduction of the professional staff of the Legislative Bureau assisting the committee this morning. We have our legal counsel, Mr. Joe Bermudez, our legislative assistant, Mr. Devin Macaranas, our IT assistant, Mr. Delbert Camacho, and our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Brendan Manglonia. Next up on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and I would like to recognize Senator Paul Manglonia for the proper motion.
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Motion has been made and it has been seconded. But before we continue with the vote for the adoption of the agenda, I'd like to make one technical amendment if there are no objections from the other members.
No objection.
On item 5C, it should read Ms. Dolores Pangilinan Kiyoshi. Her last name was inadvertently omitted on the agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Are there any concerns on the motions? Are you ready to dispose of the
Ready.
main motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Today's agenda is hereby adopted. At this time, I would like to welcome and invite Mr. Oscar Babauta, the Special Assistant for Administration, and the nominees, Mr. Mesnin, Ms. Kiyoshi, and Mr. Azuzu, to please join us in the chamber. And Mr. Babauta's role is to formally introduce the nominees to the EAGI committee. Mr. Babauta, you may proceed when you are ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of this esteemed EAGI committee, and as well as the visitors who are currently in the gallery to witness this public hearing this morning. Buenos dias para Hogutalo. It's always good to be back after hibernating a couple of weeks. Seeing friends alike here in the chamber again. Good morning and Havaday Tiro, Chairwoman Selena Bauta, and the honorable members of this committee. For the record, my name is Oscar M. Bauta. I am the Special Assistant for the Administration of the Office of the Governor. I'm here on behalf of Governor Arno I. Palacios and that of Lieutenant Governor David M. Apate to formally and officially introduce the administration's nominees for the Commonwealth Ports Authority Board of Directors, namely Mr. Steve K. Mescun, representing the island of Rota, 1st Senatorial District, and a humble and gentle woman, Ms. Dolores Pangilinan Kiosi, a retired Command Sergeant Major of the Army, representing the island of the 2nd Senatorial District, the island of Tinian and Giguan. And of course, a dear friend of ours, none other than our former resident of Chalancanoa District 3, the humble person, Mr. C.C. Azuzu, representing the island of Saipan and North, the 3rd Senatorial District, governor's nominees for the Commonwealth Board of Directors. By this time, Madam Chair and members, you should have their resume describing their professional experience and educational background. I cannot dwell more as I've seen their resumes, the three nominees. Mr. Mesgun is a former senator of the 19th and 20th Northern Marianas Commonwealth Legislature, serving in the Senate, and most recently, it is currently the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Fire Emergency Medical Services. Ms. Kiosi honorably served our United States government, 30 years of military service in the Army, United States Army, and achieved the rank of Command Sergeant Major. On the other hand, Mr. Zuzu is a professional with over 45 years of services in both the government and the private sector, an accomplished manager, and a business leader within our community. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apateng place their full and complete trust and confidence in all the three nominees, Mr. Mesgun, Ms. Kiosi, and Mr. Zuzu, to serve in the Commonwealth Authority Board of Directors. I know that they all stand ready to answer your questions and present their plans for the future of our ailing Commonwealth Board Authority. Your long professional experiences, credentials, and commitment to serving our Commonwealth in this capacity makes them viable candidates, and we all kindly ask for your expeditious approval from the administration and our people of the Commonwealth. Thank you again, once Sidos Masi Zangiliso, for the opportunity to sit before you and introduce the administration's nominees this morning, Madam Chair. I know they are in good hands with this EAJ committee, and I am confident that as a result of this hearing this morning, that a favorable response will be forthcoming to the entire full Senate. Once again, buenos dias para hamto todos. Jesus Masin este na oportunidad talo.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Babauta. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have public comments. I now open the floor for anyone who wishes to make public comments. For those who are willing to come up and provide oral testimony, I ask that you please state your name and the entity you represent for the record. The floor is now open.
Mic test. Afades and buenas. For the record, Nonus Yusef Pangilinan Kyoshi. I am here today to give the full support for the three nominees that our Honorable Governor Arno Palacios and our Honorable Lieutenant Governor David Apatang appointed these three nominees. Mr. Azuzu has the SAA mentioned has 45 years of experience. We see the McDonald's prosper, and I believe the experience that he has can bring new ideas, new way of running CPA. I believe that CPA should be run as a business, not as a government hiring agency. And I think that professional that it brings will definitely benefit CPA. The other nominee, Mr. Mesgun, he has vast experience in the government. He's also, like the SA said, he's the deputy commissioner for Sinamay Fire. I believe also that he has the experience in enforcement, and that will also assist in the CPA administrative issue. Regarding Command Sergeant Major Dolores P. Kiyoshi, I believe that she brings leadership skills, 30 years of military experience, and gaining Command Sergeant Major is not an easy task in the Army. So I believe all three nominees, they bring different perspective of experience, and those experience can be needed as of now in our CPA area. Again, no daw na bay no sangon ni Governor, then ni Lieutenant Governor Jesus Mosi ni John Mizu no appointee. I believe that they have an experience to move forward. The past is gone, so let's look forward, and hopefully the Inner Island travels will be fixed in accordingly. Many individuals wanted to come. Lo istipo na policy 150 round trip. Makat bago. Jesus Mosi.
Jesus Masi, Senor Kiyoshi, the floor is still open.
Hello. Good morning, Honorable Chairwoman Mabota, and to the honorable members of this committee. My name is Cody Taitono Narita, and I'm here in support of Mr. Steve K. Meskin's nomination to the Commonwealth Ports Authority Board of Directors. I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Meskin for many years, from when he was the resident deputy commissioner for DFEMS Rhoda up to now where he's the deputy commissioner for the Department of Fire. Mr. Meskin has proven his durability and his endurance in the Department of Fire. To be in command of such a large department, a department that saves life and property, is no small feat. Mr. Meskin is also a former senator, so it is clear that he is a true public servant. Mr. Meskin has always been a leader that prioritizes the success of the department and the employees of the department. With that said, I am in support of Mr. Meskin's nomination to the CPA board because I believe he will be a great board member. I believe he will prioritize the needs of CPA, its employees, stakeholders, and traveling public. Jesus Mosi dan na Meskin namzu. Thank you.
Jesus Masi, Senor Norita, the floor is still open.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Selena Babauta, and senators of this committee, EAGI. I'm here to inform this committee that CPA is now in a very critical situation because there are only 4 members present. One of them gets sick or absent, there will be no quorum. So, in line with what I just said, and I urge that these nominees will come on board once they're confirmed and ready to serve. Because if there is any emergency at the airport and there's not enough members on board to make the special meeting for the board, we might be facing problems. So I urge that you guys, this body will expeditiously process so we can continue with the business of the Commonwealth Ports Authority, move forward. Thank you very much.
Jesus Masi, can you please state your name for the record?
I thought you all know my name, but for the record, my name is Tonio Blas Cabrera Tumpoto, and I'm President Board Member of Commonwealth Ports Authority.
This is Mr. Don Poto. The floor is still open. Any more? For the record, this committee also received support letters from Mr. Juan Ogunpua for Mr. Steve Meskin. He is the Commissioner of Defense here in Saipan. Mr. John T. Bloss, Assistant Chief of EMS Defense, Saipan. Mr. Stanley S. Santos, Assistant Fire Chief, Defense. Mr. Albert Taitano, and a joint letter from Mr. Glenn Lizama Maritita, Mr. Ron Ogo, Mr. Joel Ogo Hokuk, Mr. Clint Atalik Barcinas, Mr. Jeff Apatang Taitano, and Mr. Danny Babauta Kituga. Also, another letter was received from Mr. Dwayne L. Maritita in support of Mr. Steve K. Meskin. Also, I personally received a message from Mr. Matthew Mosca in support of Command Sergeant Major retired Dolores Kyoshi. And additionally, the committee has not received any letters in opposition of the nominations of the 3 individuals before this committee this morning. I would now like to ask the nominees to please rise and raise your right hand, and our assistant will be administrating the oath to you.
Jose C. Azuzu, Steve King Meskin, and Dolores P. Kiyoshi, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You may be seated. Thank you. Today, we will evaluate the nominations of Mr. Steve K. Meskin, Command Sergeant Major Dolores P. Kyoshi, and Mr. Jose C. Azuzu, nominated to serve as directors to the CPA Board. This nomination requires the advice and consent of the Senate, and this is the democratic process. This is the legislature exercising its authority under the Constitution and laws to vet the nominations from the administration, and that is why we are here this morning. And I want to state for the record to the nominees, your nominations come at austere financial distress throughout the government, not just CPA. Employees are being asked or are on reduced hours. The legislature and the judiciary has also taken a financial hit, and our budgets were adjusted downward as well. And I want to let you know that each member of this committee has the inherent authority to ask probing questions of you in order to determine your character, your temperament to serve as a board member beyond your professional or educational standing. And this committee will be asking vital questions of critical concerns to the community, as well as the EAGI committee. We will now begin the questioning portion, and I will recognize the member or members who wishes to go first. If not, here we go. I'll begin. First question is to Mr. Meskin. Mr. Meskin, you served in the 19th and the 20th legislature as a senator, is that correct?
Yungan.
Were you a member of the House prior to that?
No.
I noticed that you were a member of the Federal Relations and Independent Agency Committee in the 19th, as well as the 20th Senate.
Yungan.
You know, there is longstanding concern about the cost of goods in Rhoda, and we've heard it. Senators from Rhoda share those serious concerns as well, and they have publicly stated that as well. In your time here at the Senate and as a member of the Federal Relations, were these exorbitant costs concern back then?
Unggad din ang siya chair dante sabi tutun by pangkawa dispensasyon labi noyam dutado si Jesus masi na
Okay.
nanis na oportunidad no ni para by kay gigi pago na momento na patapanali data diskuti pulis di dota no public hearing kagago dangkulan si Jesus masi Madam Chair i honorable si aloki na senador i dumizo council i dumizo clerk i IT dan i dumizo sergeant anon zano by continua gi alumni finomo no gi eno na tempo mat defectus na unggang gagagya na problema gini ni manmalofan ani gumay gizo geno gi mina 19 ang 20 bulay presenta geno na tempo para ta no nakitunog ang defectus buntion hason tempo na ani gumay gini gi legislatura no gumaha no hinaso na para benafan holo bay umanaholong wabat ko ito mafananan ng tempo MV luta put eno na rason no para natunog lo keno na ajudanti para itaw ta sin embargo timo material eno sa gumaha konflikto masusesedi gi halom i private gani para matsog no gayo no support no na ining rason lo Galomeno tihutungo tumay mano i private no na kumpanya na dumimalas ti humana no na material lo hunggan ina-effect ta gininedo na tempo ginan gayo gi still legislatura no Madam Chair.
Si Jesus masi Mr. Mesgon. Ilang mo na unsa putta EMV luta na hinaso yan na mapresenta ginigitan mo ta. Hafa tiningo mo masusedi gi puredzo na programa di po si.
Gikinimprende ko no Madam Chair ano ti humalo mo geno gi para usaw no tumay mano mafutmanya i programa neno lo humalo mo sumapot ta i resolusyon niya na para sinapot ta gini ni former governor as Iloy Inos dana gina tempo i Senate President as Victor Hokuk no gizano no siya no munay no na programa para tasaporta o para masaporta gino na momentum lo i resolusyon o saporta por rason na gumaha no idea na para sinaporta i fictus zan po inajuda loki i taw-tawta o i manggaygi na komunidad luta pao ni natunog i fictus no presyunya siya pues ini no lo tiutungo tumay mano no humanaw niya no na nasalapi sa ginin administrasyon dan watu gi na tempo i anigaygi Senate President as Victor Hokuk logaw usapot na i resolusyon na para inimbriga za o inajuda no financial na istamano na sinya manafat tumongin no na nabat ko ni paro sinapot ta loki tinisaro luta lokin todo tinian zan saipan.
Si Jesus masi Mr. Azuzu, daw na baba pa ko piso. If you have any opening remarks, would you like to deliver them at this time?
Yeah, just testing. Just briefly, no, Madam Chair. No, just a brief background on myself. I was born and raised here in Saipan, and I grew up in Chalancanoa. My wife is back there, Marcia. And I'm currently the president and CEO of McDonald's of Saipan and Guam. I'm kind of like semi-retired now, currently transitioning my business over to my son, Joe Jr. I also have other business interests in real estate rentals of apartments and commercial buildings. Our company employs about close to 500 employees, about over 100 here in Saipan and over 400 in Guam. Been in business for about 30 years, not counting my experience with Bangkok Guam and Hakobotan and other private companies. What do I bring to CPA? I bring to CPA my management experience, running efficient operations, organizations, and understand what kind of background is needed to operate CPA. So the key to the success of our CPA new operation really is the person in charge of CPA. Financial knowledge, this is an area that I'm very strong. And Chairwoman, you mentioned earlier about the financial condition of our government. And it's all across the board, from boards and commissions. It's just that, are we willing to make the sacrifice and take a second look at how we're doing things? Maybe there may be different ways of doing it and becoming more efficient. Human resources skills, having employed and managed hundreds of employees. That's an area that I take a special interest. On the legal side, I understand how lawyers work and the need to monitor their activities on a regular basis, making sure CPA is well represented at a very reasonable cost. I would like to also see that the CPA board and its manager work more closely with the governor, the elected person who ultimately have to answer to the people who elected him to office. This is an observation not here only in Saipan, but in Guam, where once board of directors are put in place, they tend to forget that they have to answer to the people for what they do. My goal as a board member is to leave CPA operationally and financially in a better position than when I first joined the board. So that's just sort of a summary of where I will be going in terms of being a member of the board. Now, you wanted me to say a few words about your question?
Not necessarily at this time. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to deliver any opening remarks to the committee if you wanted to.
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned the financial condition of our government and also with respect to independent contracts, especially with CPA. And I want to thank you for accepting the nomination, first of all three of you, because CPA is unique. Most of their funding comes from federal grants, FAA in particular. And I'm so glad, Mr. Azuzu, that you are coming in from the private sector, many years of private sector experience. And I think at times, Senator Paul has once said we were experts here at the legislature, but don't listen to us because we're the experts. But many times we do need the private sector mentality to be brought into the government in terms of sacrifices and making the agency or the organization more efficient. So I want to thank you for accepting the nomination. We will get back to you on questions. I'm sure the other members would want to ask you in greater detail. Also,
Okay.
I want to now turn the floor over to Command Sergeant Major retired Dolores Kiyoshi. I want to thank you and congratulations. There are not a lot of women, let's put it out there, there are not a lot of women who joined the Army and reached the highest enlisted rank, that of a Command Sergeant Major, most especially in our region. So I want to thank you for your 30 years of service to our nation and our Commonwealth. It definitely speaks volumes. Having been military dependent for many, many years, I know what it takes to attain that rank. And it's not an easy task, but it speaks to your leadership and organizational and skill sets that you bring to an organization like the United States Army. I now want to open the floor for you if you would like to make any opening statements at this time.
Hafade and Tiro. Dr. Jesus Maasi, Madam Chair, Pabalta, senators, members of the committee, zani zata governors and zata lieutenant governors, zani publiko. Bisangan tala na dangklon sisus masi na mapunta zo para bi represent itinian. Sa itinian ini zokuno gumao zan dangklon paggunzo disti sinamay mafanyago zo gi saipan pes mamufa mi para tinian sa zigin nakaigi si ifamolakko. Pesani Gagizigi High School, umove para Guam, sa si tataon sila na malago para umatsek mas molik para jumami no education. Sa zigi ni makadua zigi sa Guam, pesumano zigi militar sa pabisadbi. Iji tanota gi sinamay, zan babisadbi laki si nanang sa tao. Sa nigi malagonya na para ifamagun san para tori mo na familia para pa bin African-Americano bin mentor. Siya manhobin sa binali na sinya no tapan kahulu gi sinamay. Go ini pagano penglin zang kiyoshi zang ogu. Mas matungonya no tililo gi sa saipan. Ogu gi sa luta zang kiyoshi sa si tatabi no Korean. Sinanal zang si tataw si Teresa zang si Ignacio Kiyoshi. Malago sa nabisangan. Peridos sa siya semanga nisu todo ni nafamolik zena afa punsogi asu todo tempo si Zeus sa si Zeus poninai ekadasyon ni punsogi molik mina monamu pes oski sila nasa tao zigi na manuzo militar sa pabitsogi afa molik para siya molik para izatan ni community pes imena 30 years na militar 30 años utungan au dingu tinian zakan malefazo siya ni familia zani ilangwahi lo obira zu tati sa zigi zakuno plano na an munazan zu sadbi militar bi sadbi si familia ko zambi sadbi izatano tanota gi sinamay persikin ni militar yang kai gizu no manuzo para America zangwati gi Iraq Afghanistan Korea Italy todo no lugar siya uli zan todo siya klasen no lenguajes and fino modo Americano culture. Todo na lugar no ni manozo todo tempo o representa i minoleko gi sinamay na man rabu zaman man moliki ito modo gi sinamay. Pes is the armies and sinanama sangano na uno the leadership. Nisita on sokotuntunga fa na tsotso manayo mga mapolo papa na kahulo tuntunga fa mafanagyo pes 9 mas na no minolik tsotsomo duty an manay tsotso mga no pumaran matsotso sa zaza so o gagor tuntungo sige na ay ano mo dun so fa molik para i publiko zani para i familia mo. Respect, todo tempo respeto toto. Sa kuno respeto toto, sempre respeto. Selfless service. Mga matsogi toto para hago. Tsogi toto para i publiko, para i toto, para si Jesus. Honor, todo tempo honra si Jesus, honra familia mo zani publiko. Integrity, ang tuntungo. Lo mga pumaran ng tuntungo tsogi afa na sinya mo por tungo afa pun tsogi the todo tempo sangan ni magahit sukoti bonito magahit sangan magahit sa sempino nigi mas magadesi magahit na unsasangan pes pagi CPA ungan mapaisin so afa tingo CPA didi dia tingon CPA utai bylaws zan i guashan no otrisan na man na respeto na senators and torin man mga position masangan din so afay CPA problema lo mga manluhan sa ti para tigon kasen toto para bihonggi afa masasangan nisita bi kunguk sa bi taite afa siya guan problema zigi pagan ni bidepende gi izoko team gi board members sa bin paisin afa sinya tatsogi sa mga masangan to tempo na no nisita ta check off empenyo na sinita ta zudazi i publiko zini zata CPA. Pesi menot tumuna bisangan na Jesus masun na puntazo lo mga manluan I publiko sa ni gobyerno sa namzo ni I members of the committee na binay empeño na bitsogi molik ifinenen mona the siga binsogi afa para molik para izatan no tanote Commonwealth. Jesus masin.
Jesus Masi, Miss Kyoshi. Mr. Meskin, back to you. Are you a resident of Saipan at this time? You're not a resident of Saipan?
ma koni zo magi para be fanaduda loki wini lo I residente ko gaya luta lo gi presente sumasagado sa ipan.
A resident of
Yes,
Saipan, but domiciliary of
puri
Rhoda.
chetso na gumagayo gini na mo
Jesus
residente.
Masi, so you are here because of economic opportunities.
Ngan.
Jesus Masi. And I mentioned that because at the confirmation hearing of Mr. Bruce Jorgensen, a domiciliary of Rhoda, untunga si Mr. Jorgensen,
Yes, ungan utunga.
stabo aluta, anay sumasaga si Mr.
Gayong
Jorgensen.
tempo gaya huli antes na uli si Mr. Bruce.
Because at the confirmation hearing of Mr. Jorgensen, he is a current resident of Saipan, but a domiciliary of Rhoda. Mr. Jorgensen testified that he has never voted in any municipality other than Rhoda. So his domicile is in Rhoda. A petition was submitted by Senator Dennis Mendiola. Are you aware of that? In opposition of Mr. Jorgensen.
Ungan gi press siya nuli lo
Gi
personally
gaseta.
gi gaseta nuli lo i formal petition ti uli lo i masangan niya gi gaseta ungan hutungo na guama society tagen.
Na comprendido fan Mr. Mesngun Hoffa na diferensya. Izo mo nomination dan si Mr. Jorgensen gi presente.
Bonti kiniprende ko no Madam Chair amam bonti ti mali si Mr. Jorgensen sa ipanuluta iningi unum na pati bonti mo na no ilingi niya na ti residente si Mr. Jorgensen no luta lo i diferensya niya ti tungo sa lileng mo na gayin na mayrista na no mambobota luta no mga tungo no amdo tumungo sa ningi na hanahalo meno na informasyon lo giun tempo anman si Mr. Jorgensen sumaga luta no iningi tiningo no disti tempo no former mayor no Prudencio no tempo na Benjamin Manglonia no uhaso na gumaygi si Mr. Jorgensen no luta no gininaserbi luta no komunidad luta no as no uno na kanso loki luta da bula contribution niya loki tiningo si Mr. Jorgensen luta logi momento dia na gumaygi zo luta magay kulan gay tempo ti uli si Mr. Jorgensen no iningi sinya be testiguzi na giat un tempo kulan ti uli na gumagay luta no pos no tungo no malumi do niya nomination no gwini no iningi no lingi niya na makukontragi po din rason na ti residentin luta bonti lingi niya ti residentin luta sa ti malili luta bonti iningi mo na lingi niya kuminday data gyan lagi sa luta pos iningi bonti mo na no konflikta i masangan niya na ti sumasaga dan ti residente i komunidad no sumasangan lo ano na marista dan no mambobota luta iningi man presente gi sa hamzo gi mena ni i komite.
Jesus Masi, next question. What specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and time goals do you have for CPA?
Ginun tempo matsuotso azo gi bat kunairi anman mo li kalangwabon ti 2-3 años no gibat kunairi zan matsuotso azo ginun tempo loki tali gi bandan no batko ini dididi kinimprende ko no bandani gibat ko na iri zan ibat ko na banda no pud bandang kadga zan na pasahero malik sa mensyon na no dangkulo defekto niya no luta no daw sasangan na zangging gumakam poko gini za ihafan na maparada zo na gobyerno za hamzo na interamenti gi senador no za ni presidente za in adapta no na komite i report mizo no bay sigura na bay tsagi kwanto ni na sinyaon gi tsading na manera za ni pumalo na mangatsongon gin sa kaso manggay ni sa bula no manisisita luta loki tinisisaro loki tinian lo saipan loki lo i-permit inasoko loki na sa no imatantaw ton manhalumit luta loki ni finen pon atan ni ko afay fasilidad ta no kondisyon niya no unisita bunti na lilek ko na finina para tatsogi ang gensinya ma-suporta zo ni pumalo na tana primero loki luta tinisaro luta lokin tolo tinian saipan zata lipstick dididi luta no tungwa na ti kay tempo mangwagwan efektos pagol lo ipintura na ano bonita parewas ti zaging gwa florista gigima za un na lipstick no luwan ay tinilay ka di figuranya pus parewa di kikisangan no Madam Chair no angin tumuno ko gi plaza finenena fresco na florist no manggaygi yuriza pus no bonito sangging gwa lipstick niya no za bonito pintura niya i plaza nina mamagufay pasayron tumunong masyaligtag wagwan di inapasimo lo at least masyagi zahita ni i-board na pega no na hali ng pilihan nana mo kay man gwa diferensya masusesi di po sa unggan Madam Chair no estimane ni patsadi dig ino isinya ben fanado na ni pumalo na membro nangin sa kaso no gumay gino na maadapta na komite na report no si Jesus Masi
Jesus
Madam Chair.
Masi, gracias na menciona po di facilidad no Getzaluta. But dayan no timoni humano sa tiluta.
Estia no Madam Chair, i-fiesta za golangay, golang namamalo para biya mampus be mensiona na isa no. Gwa
Liya
bisita
kasi kondisyon niya no
i-kondisyon
plaza.
no mampus no bi tapega no Madam Chair na
Mega
kulang namamalo.
analysis.
Sinya mala klaro na namamalo. Para tawalong gi plaza para tafanahalong gi na porta sagan no linya no umahano gi fina conveyor no na punhalom na no gan no tigo bonito no. No bonito zo man ngizo na klase manahala balagbak mo zagi kung tumuno ko hababaje wa ipetta na zo manano halom po sa hutsum may sagi no kulan iningi no watan loki pareho zanisti sa ipan no bunti ko sinya no ibo na ginen o file na namzo zana yazi pumalo na an malag plasay gwaziling niya no para conveniente no tinsaro tagoti malitato hasta sige no dumililing papagi lo edi para gwaut ne kulan no peligro loki di panggogote lo ay zagwamo ne edi conveniente na linya escalator or elevator nang is por kahulo adon sinenik na no pos sinya no Madam Chair bunti sinya no man posible kita gano ne no
Taza imposible.
todo manghunggi on nengi na todo ihafa sinya na manado dai ay sinya bunti no bumatiriat ihafa ini hiningeta dani ini sidata tagagawa isaina do sinya wasigita o maduda mo na masyafa masosese di kita nota.
Okay, next question. What are your concrete plans for Rhoda? Should you be confirmed as a board member for CPA, what are your concrete plans to reduce the cost of goods to Rhoda?
Iningi uno no sita bay reseta tati zi mafanana ngi pagi haji no gumay luluy izi mafanana ni Rota Terminal and Transfer or something ni RTNT. Datatan fan sa binasesa no sa utunga na CPA sumutsuli no na contract lo utungo afa no maneno nagigino no afa no mano para termino niya no na contract sa no as far as no tiningo kinimprende ko ginezo no tungo ni RTNT luta dis na nagagizo gi high school sta pago sisya no do mampus no naman man na klase no zay i-facilidad loki gi mampus no ti bonito ne zan bula piniligro siya man masesese di tinihingo ka si sumuzong senator po gi news no manlalalalo itaw-taw ni ti sinyo malo mi batko sa no ni crane ti manoon no iningi siya uno na fakto no man problema mami luta pos iningi no primero no siya para bialigo biatan no siya istemano na sinya maaduda loki zanging wa otro na kumpanya malago humalom malada tababa loki no tababa otro na kumpanya zo halom zo wa kompetensya sa iningi ni sinya bunti komunidad man resibi di no afazo hinagong gi efektos sa sinya bunti no wa kompetensya na sinya sige mas labar to sa sinya tumunog sa wa no kompetensya loki gi otro na kumpanya pos iningi siya no Madam Chair no kay gino siya ginasoko talipstick tumunok ta gi plaza tana fresco za tana bula florista no masyati bula sa lapeta lo pintura bin na siguro na befatsoso da bigagaozi gini ko board ko sinya masya pintura finenena malago data pintay da talipstick gi plaza dan be aligaw i-artentist ay mano na sinya zangwa otro kompetensya na ekonomiya na otro na kumpanya sinya man halom loki za uwaha loki no kompetensya na sinya no manahalom loki batko no zan no afazo no no produkto na para o riba di loki hinagong itaw-taw luta. So iningi pagod no mampusin muna fan no afado no linya guane man kigod ganit pud ginin eno siya mantak kilo factus no za iningi dang kululeno na sinya biatan neno na kondisyon.
Mrs. Mwasi, moving on to Ms. Kyoshi, what are your concrete plans to reduce the cost of goods entering Tinian? Tinian is unique. They don't have an exclusive stevedoring contract, unlike Rhoda. It's a little bit different in Tinian. But I know the price of goods are also costly to the residents there. What are your plans? Should you be confirmed to serve as a member of the CPA board? What are your concrete plans to alleviate the cost of goods in Tinian?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the Senate. So my first priority, once I'm in the board position, is to ask all the board members to all sit down together and work together and look at all the agendas and projects and any other issues, concerns that has been happening first before I decide to make a concrete plan. And then based on that, issues or concerns that we've brought up for the community, that's when the board members and I will come up to an agreement, a solution, and proposal to the governor and the lieutenant governor. And based on their recommendations, that's when we'll come up with a concrete plan. So, for example, one of my concern is a reasonable price for the fare. Yes, for the average tomorrow, 150 is high. It's pretty steep, especially when the hours are being cut in our government and the minimum wage is $7.25 just to fly to Saipan to go for a medical appointment or for shopping for schools or to visit a family or attend funerals or anniversaries. 150 is pretty steep. So that is one of my goal is for my concrete plan is to get with the board members and talk among each other and see how we can come up with and propose a reasonable fare for our airlines so that our people are able to commute from Saipan to Tinian or Tinian to Saipan. Because what it does, my safety issues I look at also too is now that, people are saying, well, I can't afford a 150. So I'm going to find a family who has a boat and get in a boat despite the weather, right? They're not concerned about the weather. They're looking at the price. They're going to get in a boat, travel across from Tinian to Saipan in a very, I'll say, not stable weather. Is going to put their lives at danger. So those are the things that I look at. And then I've done both, travel by air, by boat, and our seaport is also a concern. So for my mom that's a 75-year-old, if she was to get in a family boat at Tinian, I'll say the port is not as conducive to an elderly to get on a small boat. And then when they get to Saipan, there's 2 ports in Saipan. Both of them are neither conducive to an elderly or I'll say a person with disability. So those are my concrete plans, is to talk to the board members, come up with a reasonable fare that our community can afford to fly. And 2 is look at the safety of our seaports. How can we mitigate the issues for our seniors or disabilities or people that are having a hard time flying or traveling, make it less conducive for them easier for them to travel so that it is more, I'll say, friendlier, and people from the cinema are able to travel back and forth without worrying about the price and their safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kyoshi. Next, Mr. Azuzu. You've heard the pleas of constituents from Tinian and Rhoda. Do you have any idea or goals how to assist our island sisters in Tinian and Rhoda and our constituents there to alleviate some of the high cost of goods that come into Tinian and Rhoda?
Yeah, Chairwoman, cost of living in Rotan, Tinian has always been a very interesting subject for many, many, many years. And I've had some conversation with some of my colleagues about supply and demand and how that drive the price. But to me, we need to have a comprehensive review of why are we getting that kind of price for certain things in Rotan Tinian. And to me, and a lot of it is driven by politics. We have a company, let's say, for example, in Rotan Tinian and Saipan, that monopolize the port
Mhm.
over the years. And that the interesting thing about it is when I mention politics, sometimes the agreement or the franchise is not even up. They already renew it. So there's just no chance
Mm.
for the community to seek out competitive people to run the ports. So of course, these people that are running the ports, they have no incentive to lower any prices.
Mm.
So one of my goal when I get into the CPA is to take a look at these arrangements and see if there's opportunity for us to pass, to get them to be efficient in what they do and pass those savings down to the consumers. Because I've been around, I've been in business for a long time, and when I sit down to try and increase my price, there's two choices. You can price yourself in such a way that you make you know more than enough money that than you need, versus, hey, you know what, if I increase my price, I need to be reasonable to the community. So it's a matter of taking a look at the details, and I'm interested also in looking at what are the reinvestment plans of these companies. Again, it's never been looked at very closely. It's just we assume that these people are behaving and doing things on behalf of the community, but we don't know. And I've never heard of anybody reviewing these arrangements. It's a given. Like what see Mr. Mesklun was saying is that we need to provide a competitive atmosphere.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I remember back, Chairwoman, when I first opened McDonald's, and then Wendy came in. People tell me, Joe, are you worried about it? I said, no. I think competition is very good. It keeps me
I
on my
agree.
toes. So I welcome that, and I feel that concessions, exclusive concessions, like for example, the airport,
Mhm.
the seaports, you know, they control everything that comes into these islands. And it's very important that the community look at the pricing that they're charging for all the commodities that are coming in. Are they reasonable? Are they compared to other jurisdiction? Are they overcharging us? And if it's an overcharging issue, maybe that's something that we need to sit down with them and say, hey, you know what? This is what we see in Hawaii. You're way beyond. I think you got to come down. And this is where CPA really, the board can really, we hold the permitting authority, and we can tell that to them. Another thing is, since these are franchise or exclusive, the government should be able to have access to their financials. And I don't know if that's happening, whether every year they have an audited financial statement that's submitted to the CPA, and CPA's financial controller take a look at that and say, you know what, your profit margin is 20%. The average industry in the US is 10%. Hey, something's really wrong here. You're pocketing more money than you should. Let's work out something that difference in 10% can go into potential savings to the community. So really, no, Chairwoman, we need to take a look at it. Maybe they're doing the right thing. I don't know, but nobody has looked at the details of that. So the reinvestment part, I know I do that on my business every 7 years. I want to make sure that I save money so that I can reinvest into the company. This exclusive agreement with the government, they gotta have a plan to. What don't you gotta like for example, crane, if they last 10 years, don't wait until it breaks down, because if it breaks down, who suffers? Not the company, it's the community. And that's where a lot of these costs are passed on to the consumers unnecessarily, because the operators don't know what they're doing and they're not planning. That's the problem with that one. So, I don't, for example, in my business, I don't wait for my air condition to break down, and then all of my customers are hot and they have to pay the price. And they come into McDonald's and they pay the same price whether I have the air condition or not, which is not fair to the customer. So I think we need to take a look at everything that the people, for example, in the intermediary between people selling products to someone in the U.S., to someone in the Marianas, putting in the board the ship, then bring it into the port. That's the missing link. Is we need to take a look at that, because I can almost guarantee that there's a lot of inefficiency, and we are all paying the price for that one. So again, I may be right or wrong, but this is something that I want to take a look at it. And at some point, I think I'm gonna probably will recommend to my board that we come back to the legislature and start this habit of 7 years before the expiration, we already renewing it, because the board members are in collusion with the people that are operating all of this business. I think we should really, it's mandatory that maybe 5 years before the expiration, let's open it up, regardless of who is the board members. Because let's face it, it's a small community. And so everybody say, hey, before we get out, let's just renew this this exclusive agreement, and let's just tie everybody up for the next 20 years, which is ridiculous. Really, it's not fair to the community. Now, if you're running an efficient operation, for example, there's nothing to be ashamed and to share with the community that you're doing the right thing, right? Right? The community knows that you're out there to make money, but there's such things as making reasonable money versus taking advantage of the community because you have to go through me to bring your products to Saipan. You have no choice, So we gotta take a look at that and make it fair, not only for the business, but fair for the community. We have an obligation to really look at that. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, whoever's in power, if they got 20-year new franchise agreement or an agreement, and there's 15 more years before expiration, the board can just say, hey, let's just renew it another 5 years and make it 20 years. And so that one deprives the community with the ability of making a decision who is the best operator or business to run the ports, for example. So again, no, I'm not saying anything is going on wrong. I may be corrected, but I look at it from a fairness point of view, no, Chairwoman, that if a business person makes money, I think it's to the benefit of the community also.
Thank you, Mr. Azuzu. I agree with a lot of the things you're saying about efficiency and deprivation of the community from business owners. But and I do hope that should you be confirmed to the board, you come back to the legislature. We're here. We've always opened our doors to work with agencies. There's a whole bigger scheme in relation to the transshipment of goods and everything, and other factors play into it. But one of the things that I have concerns with is that our government has never leveraged our Jones Act exemption
Right.
for the Marianas. And that is a key advantage we have over Guam and the FSM. I am determined to solve the Jones Act puzzle
Mhm.
so that we can turn the CNMI into the shipping hub of the region. I've talked to experts in the field, shipping and economics. Realistically, if we were to leverage the Jones Act exemption in our covenant and turn the CNMI into a shipping hub, it will lower the cost of goods by at least 40%.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to go through Hawaii.
Mhm.
And I did an open government, a FOIA request to MARAD, Maritime Agency
Mhm.
Administration in Washington, D.C. And I have all the documents, including the lawsuits instigated by Matson against the U.S. Department of Transportation. And at some point, I would like to sit down with CPA board members. I have asked for the technical agreements of the Tanapak Harbor. As we all know, the Tanapak Harbor used to belong to the military, but then the CNMI government slowly
Right.
started leasing back portions of it. We now have control over the entire formerly military property of the Tanapak Harbor, so we can leverage that.
Mhm.
I would like to ask you, what are your recently the CPA board increased the airport fees by at least 70 to 90%. What impact do you think this will have on CPA's ability to retain and attract new airlines, and tourism in general?
Definitely negative. And, I had some chance to really think about that. There's, these different ways of attracting carriers to the CNMI. And I was just talking to some friends that, right, with the issue with this hiring of a consultant in Washington, D.C., I thought that's kind of ridiculous. I think what the agencies in government should do is work together with the office of the governor, because the governor has access to important people in the U.S. Let's just, if you don't mind, I just want to talk a little bit about these charter flights. And as we all know, charter flights are restricted. It's a certain company gathering all of its customers together and shipping them, sending them off island to a different destination. The other part of it is just regular flights, but companies are reserving, let's say, 10-20% of the seats, like that. And from my understanding, and I need to get the facts better, from my understanding is that the U.S. has an agreement with China, for example, to allow domestic U.S. airlines to enter, to domestic Chinese airlines to enter the U.S., but there's a number restriction on the number. And so the approach of, if I'm not mistaken, with CPA and MBA and some organization is to include the Marianas on that one. And my thinking is, I think the governor should really negotiate a separate, strictly for the Marianas, because once you reach, let's say, the 24 limit in the U.S., there's just so many competition that before you know it, they reach the 24, and we have no room to get into the system, to be a part of it. So rather than that, leverage our close working relationship with the military and have the governor negotiate a separate deal strictly for the Mariana Islands, so that if they allow us 30 flights a month, one flight a day, that belongs to us. we don't need to compete with other airlines from the US or from China. So that's just one of my idea. The idea again of paying a consultant to try and convince somebody in the U.S. Department of Transportation to include us. Uh, it's a good idea, but I think it has to be channeled to the governor and let the governor really work out the details on that one. And we can help as a board. MVA can help, but we need to come in with one voice so that the Secretary of Transportation can and and from what I hear, a lot of these federal officials, they're really more than willing to help us out. It's just we need to come in with one voice, not be coming in from different sides.
Thank you. Would you be willing to roll back the fees?
I'm gonna when I get in, I like to take a look at the facts.
Sure.
And again, the key to it is sitting down with the airline, finding out what they can afford and what we can do to work with them with the idea of lowering the fare, because to me it's kind of like very expensive right now.
It
And,
is.
I travel every other week to Guam to check my operations there, and boy, $600 is a lot of money. Even me that I can afford it. Just imagine the ordinary person out there. You like what she was saying from Tinian. But I guess what I'm saying is we'll take a look at what's happening right now, gather all the facts, and where there is opportunities to lower costs, I can assure you that we will sit down with the appropriate people like the airline and try to work out something with them. Because again, we have to always remember that these guys, they're here to make money, but there's what they call reasonable ways of making money. And I can tell if they're a little bit on the greedy side. So we just have to be watching that. And and we have to be honest and we'll be very frank that without us you cannot survive, so we got to work together.
In light of the geopolitical tensions in China and the US, do you feel that hiring Kirsten and who's that? Kirsten and Young is the consultant you're talking about. They're being paid $775 an hour to lobby in Washington, D.C. to be included in the plan to grant unlimited flights from communist China to the CNMI. And given the geopolitical tensions and CPA's fiscal constraints, how important do you think it is that CPA be aligned with the Commonwealth policy and national security measures?
Chairwoman, extremely important. That's why when I look at what's happening now, where CPA is going on its way, MBA is going on its way, it's very uncoordinated. And when you talk to the governors, has no idea what's going on. So, it's sad. It's really sad because, again, we're appointed members to the CPA board. Yes, we have a duty to do something, but at the end of the day, this is a small community and the head of the community is our governor. So it's very important to work together because there's limitation what we can do as CPA.
Yes.
There's limitations.
I
Above
agree.
that,
I agree that government agencies, it's frustrating for me and to members of the legislature that we find exactly what you're talking about, that departments are not working together. They work in silos and it duplicates the efforts and it's not efficient.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating to put out an initiative to bring revenue to the CNMI as we are charged to do. And we find that these departments don't even communicate. Nobody wants to play. If I was MBI, I don't want anyone playing in my sandbox. I'm going to work by my own.
And Chairwoman, it's the work is hard as it is. And then we have people that are not working together. It just makes the work double.
It is.
It's
It's
silly.
frustrating.
It's silly and frustrating, and it doesn't have to be like that. Geez, our population is only $50,000. 50,000 people. We're such a small community, and there's just so much tension. If we can just put that away and work together, I think there's so much that we can do.
Ms. Kyoshi, would you support the withdrawal of the China petition that this consultant has been hired to lobby for in Washington, D.C., given the geopolitical tensions between China, the U.S.? I've already seen in our military communities that Guam is most likely a target of China. Should anything happen, would you support the withdrawal? Should you become a board member, the petition to allow unlimited flights from communist China?
Madam Chair, so you mentioned unlimited. So
Yeah.
based on my experience in the military, there are 5 countries that us as U.S. and CNMI have to be concerned about giving these 5 countries the autonomy / financial, the ability to control our islands, our country. So one of these 5 countries is mentioned was going on the lobbies, right? China. So my vote would be to look at and see, instead of seizing, stopping, is look at how, when they say provide them the limited resources, because that what makes our CNMI more, more pleasant and welcome to all other foreign countries, is we welcome all foreign countries, whether domestic, to come and bring revenues to our island, because that's what we need. However, there's stipulation. It doesn't give the foreign countries the ability to control our islands, which is basically, if we give them unlimited resources, what's to say who's going to stop them from unlimited? So I just ask our leadership that are the subject matter expert to relook at that discussion and maybe refine, instead of saying unlimited, give them some leeway at allowing our foreign countries, to include China, to come and bring revenues for our CNMI without excluding them completely. Because national security is our one major priority besides our revenues. Is we got to look at to make sure that we as a CNMI maintain our governance instead of a foreign country coming over and taking over before we know it's going to be, say, too late, but it'll be very disruption for the U.S. to come in and say, okay, CNMI, we see there's a problem going on here in CNMI, now we have to react instead of being proactive.
Thank you, Ms. Kyoshi. Mr. Meskin, what are your thoughts on CPA hiring a lobbying firm to lobby out of DC to include Communist China in the petition to allow them unlimited flights to the
Dos
CNMI?
masi Madam Chair magay no ti bonito na no no patatan na patafan lobby gin tafan mangoni no kolonya pago financial na manera ni taf na manggayit na staw. Likfino si Mr. Dudu dan si Miss Kyosi na no mala data entrega gobyerno data fanhitang matatsong na gawatan no gagi dota delegado gas no Congressman Kilili no iningi uno na potensyal no sinya tafan matatsong data no tilele ko na para ta senhutsuma i China market no sa tanisita loki masya ginin mano mogi low likpinonya ugwa limitation na no dangwa loki dididi control dani afana control mga nata tana guaha no danyo para itanota daging patasota da tababa huzong todo no gwa loki otro market no uli pago gaseta no muzong no na mamensyosyon na gini ni MVA, which is bonito ito talo na mensahe i Hong Kong market no iningi uno na potensyo no na potensyo no sinya bueno sinya ta bisita data asesa data li no lo hunggan gini non tempo i China i gini na i communist no no na publiko mogi no man seso man matu za ha bansa di ekonomiyata no ticinya taman malefan no sa gininini matali no nagwano no atrabidat niya zang gwaha loki no contribution niya gelomeno law gi bandan esti i sinintin i contrarion i fasti para i protection para i nasyon tanay no debi loki tafan no mangmata za tatan na tanabalansa esti law go ti accepta zi ipatafan manhaya lobbies gilog iningi uno no Madam Chair no be ata sa uli iningi like no afalinga si Mr. Zuzu no mala tafan matatsong turudo mano na agensiya zan no departamento za tapega uno gi tanafandanya turudo iluta za magay sinya bunti kuamo material za tanaya fanita zan ni membro ni legislatura go ko sosozo eno i gobyerno zan iafa na rason na sinya para tahat sa ekonomiyata za tafan un bosa para logon gin patafan manggago adzudo pus ningi no nagagizo na staw no Madam Chair no senala za ma obliga CPN na pofan manhayo na ningi no kulambunti no ti wizaza o favor no lo debi tafan matatsong dan pumalu siya na agensiya dan legislatura dan gobyerno da tafan umbos hulo dan loki delegado na gay sa lago sa Congressman Kilili da ejige na tababa huzong ini hafa tanisisita dan sinya hafa sinya tafan maajuda gini ni federal na banda dan ni administrasyon loki na si
Si Sus Masi, no esta no sige hungog na nisita para tafan unbos no hulugi sa Washington DC, and I've heard that from my Department of Defense contacts. I've heard it straight from them saying, this agency comes to Washington DC and they ask for something. So what they're hearing at the top, at the Pentagon level, from the Department of Defense is that there's too much white noise. Too many agencies are coming up and they're not speaking in one voice. That's the biggest issue they've informed me of. Mr. Mesngun, how then, MVA is saying China is our biggest market right now for tourism. How do we reconcile necesidad na uhalom revenues in China tourism sa tourism guapo
hunggan bunti
sa national security issues.
yes adinan siya ni no tatungay administrasyon nati no ninafufuntun nesti na banda ni Dota national security iningi idonya no basi gigi nasonya zan otro bandan no marketing gi MVA hunggan ini nasonya estimano ne para stimula halom ekonomiya pa itanota iningi loki za kumum fiflik testi pagri dos na za galomeno no likfinomo afat inasoko tafan matatsong todo sa tilele ko na patana para go ningi ilele ko munga na patana para sa wa potential inagi na market lo debi ugwaha loki garantia na estimano na isinya uhalomeno lo tiu atrabishaw zan ti ustodba national security na banda iningi ibunti wahas loki na lo galomeno no tisinya zo kointos mas ko banda nini national security sa no gaygeno gi sanhilo ni maatan na sa siya no afa zo no umulili hafa masusesi gi globus law gi hita gi market na banda hita malagota sa ginin tatsagin ngi na finamamis na ajuday neno law go lele ko na debi ugwahan no inadanya gwahan no ufan unus tigi so tunga na gi umbos law ilelenya loki si Mr. Zuzu no na wa limitasyon sinya ilelenya ustemano na sinya mariana sa ni para ta market esti zota za sanlago ajuday za unayin iningi na fado nilingnya na kwantu sinya unsuli para hogo za hogo hasta sa tunluan na unmanay nino na kantida ibni zomo na market para mogine lo mga loki na installed by izota no interest gi national no geographic no issue gi banda ni tension pos ini loki no kulanin ngi pago no sumatsabait gini zanin no mistotor ba tumutunyak no Madam Chair no man malagwit government malagwit sa Chicago malago zo na loki na halom masyamano na market za puparo kahulo ekonomiya ta tazen no ti malog ti gumaiza zanti umagadisi turita mo malagoy lo debi lo kita na takilo ginasota i protection tagi taw-taw ni. Pus no debi na tabalansa lo galumeno no gufmakot na kontraryo minagay gipago sa tipago na momento no mampus no lulukluk lebok i kinalamting i globus ni zaningi mo na fanagigini no sa kumumon mo mapaw si za molika buntiti tita fanagigini na tempo nelo. We just have to find no amano na solusyon na hindi patan matatsong la inisisita lo kaya dun mizo inisita legislatura importante legislatura na sa hafa para ta chonik huzong gini hamzo debi hamzo loki munagwa ni sinya ta chonik huzong zan administrasyon dan ang istamano ni sinya patazuda loki i other no agency la kumikile ko i MVA zan i CPN paro atrata halom loki ocho na investors na paro ufanalom zau azuda ekonomiya ta puseninge na banda lo debi loki gugwaha loki taw-taw ni para tafan no ilingnya no Batafangginia no ki gi protection na manera da din para ta balance testimona no Madam Chair po ini na nagayo na staff pag.
Jesus masi no ojalá Ramon no na no sadbet to ipetta ni legislatura. Bula siya na departamento manangas ta kisala. Edyo ni man mafatumagi. Zaman mangagogo azudu. Loto di tempo. Adbeto staba wa gwini. Adbeto ipetta.
Ungan dinansya no Madam Chair.
Profan man assiste gi departamento ne siya. Ti para pabinfan magagawa sa lapi. Gayfet sa loki i legislatura.
Ungan.
No, istigas Center po guiza i chairman ni Federal and Foreign Affairs gini gi Senate. Listo loki manazuda to di tempo. At this time, I will yield to the other members. I recognize Senator Donald Manglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief because I know Senator Paul has a couple of things on this list. But first of all, welcome back, former Senator Meskin. Thank you for your service and your continued service. Similarly, welcome back, retired CSM Kiyoshi. Thank you for your service to our country and our islands. And Mr. Zuzu, for your contributions, your numerous contributions to our community. And congratulations to all of you on your nomination. All of you hit a lot of great points that I wanted to bring up. Mr. Meskin mentioned the condition of the Rota Airport. Mr. Zuzu, you've mentioned flying back and forth Guam and Saipan a lot. And, here we are, MVA is trying to promote Sinamay as this premier destination, but even the airport alone, when you walk through the airport, you see buckets all over, and that's the first thing people see when they come in, and that's the last thing people see when they leave. And so, even something as small as that leaves a lasting impact. And so I hope that's something that you can look into. I don't know, while you were assessing the terminal fees, maybe PCFs is also something that would need to be discussed. Maybe one thing that you can also look at is the wharfage fees. I know back in 2016 they suspended or even took out the wharfage fees, at least for inner island also, but that didn't really translate into reduced prices at the stores. And so maybe trying to revisit that and see if that would if the possibility of bringing that back would, how much of an impact that would be on the products coming in, but also how can that kind of offset the air traffic, the cost of flying back and forth or inner island. I mean, right now, just to Rota, you're talking about $330 round trip, Saipan to Rota, and then you talk about $390 round trip Rota to Guam. That's just as much as flying Saipan to Guam, basic economy, right? And so, from 240 to 390, that's such a huge increase. Yet, if you look at the other airlines that are servicing the islands, Micronesia Air Cargo, they haven't increased their cargo rate. So, kind of see where the inequity is there between the two airlines, or even if maybe Star is actually passing on just this increase alone to the passengers. And so I hope that's something that you can also consider, but also keeping in mind that with Asiana suspending flights for the next 2 months and the possibility of coming back in December, and then the news today that came out on HKA planning to come back in early next year. I hope that the solution on this fees could be resolved prior to Asiana coming back or HKA coming in. I did have a question on the China market. I know former Chairwoman King Hines was actively pushing and trying to open that market. You did touch up on points on that. And then also, I think maybe I just wanted to get your idea on what, about 2 years ago, the municipality of Rota was approved for a pedestal crane, which could resolve a lot of this crane issues. But for some reason, that project, or I don't know who was at fault, whether it was a mayor of Rota or CPA, there was some miscommunication that they ended up redirecting those funds to something else. And so, do you think a public corporation is kind of like the way to go in trying to address this situation in terms of maybe having the stevedoring be run by the government?
Say something, Senator. Again, this is part of the conversation that I had earlier about those in charge of the airport. It's sort of like a franchise. It's really their obligation to reinvest. Now, if the economics is not there, for example, the number of customers, the number of cargoes that are coming in do not justify purchasing a $500,000 crane. That's when these companies have to go back to the airport and say, hey, you know what? If I do this thing, I'm not going to make money for the next 10 years. What can you do to assist us? And so that kind of conversation should take place. But I have a feeling there's no conversation. And so, again, if you go to Guam and you go to Hawaii, those stevedoring companies, again, they are required to do reinvestment. And because, again, they monopolize the port. Basically, every single thing that comes into the island is charged something. So we just want to take a look at how reasonable those collections are and how much of it is being put aside to replace things that may break into the future or what we need in the future. Again, it's ridiculous when a ship comes in and the crane is broken and there's nothing we can do. It's kind of like, it's weird. To me, it's kind of like, boy, it's like your car breaking down and you have to walk all the way to San Roque. So you're talking about community. I'm talking about walking to San Roque on an individual person, but this is the community. We gotta have a more sense of urgency to make sure that these guys are operating efficiently, so that it's almost like CUC. I mean, right after the typhoon, they should be up and running. Why delay unless there's major damages? That's a big question in Guam. Is they spend millions of dollars on infrastructure, and then the first week there's no water. It's ridiculous. I mean, they have a lot of generators around, but they found out that all the generators are not operating. I mean, they bought it, put it there, and never touch it. And the only time they touch it is when there's an emergency. Of course, I mean, in my business, every month I have a private company come in to exercise the generator. I mean, it's common sense, right? I mean, it doesn't take to be, you don't have to be a scientist to really figure out that you need to keep this equipment working. But going back to your point on the crane, I know that it's a major investment. I'm not too sure whether it's a $500,000 or $1 million. I won't be surprised. But if you look at the financials of the company and say, hey, you know what, you could afford it because you're making so much. I think you need to take a look at your operation again, and you need to start, reserving money for that crane. So that's something like, Senator, that I would love to dig into the details myself and see whether these guys are performing to the expectation of the community. They have a big responsibility. It cannot be like, no, it's okay. If you're not responsible for the community, that's okay. But this is community. Everybody's suffering. So if you're doing your job, then we can say, okay, you've done your best. Now let's sit down and help each other. So my thinking is these guys should have the crane, and again, it doesn't have to be a fancy one, just so long as they can lift
Yeah.
those cargoes down and put it on the ground. And
Well, the reason I brought it up was because this was a Department of Interior funded crane. Like it was approved already.
yeah, that's
ready
even
to-
better.
Yeah, and so they redirected the money, and so if we can get approved for it, if we got approved for it once, we could get approved for it again, and so hopefully that those are
We'll find out.
some of the things that
yeah.
And so if you can work with Office of
Yeah.
Grants Management to see how
When we get
yeah.
in, I'll get back to you on that one, because that's ridiculous. If the money's there already,
Yeah.
why not buy the crane?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring up some of those concerns, especially the terminal fees, which just recently came about. I know these were some issues that were also brought up when Director Cabrera was sitting right before us. But at least Mr. Meskin, for the most part, the condition of the terminal in Rhoda, something that you brought up. And also just having that discussion with CBP, also that's one other issue that Rhoda is facing right now, and just having maybe a permanent CBP officer in Rhoda that clears passengers to Guam, because I think that's one of the reasons why rates are much higher to Guam, because they always have to fly in a CBP officer every single day, Monday to Friday, and also in order for STAR to provide more flights to Guam on the weekends. That's another discussion that maybe CPA and CNMI Customs can work on, in trying to see how we can provide more flights to Rhoda from Guam or to Guam. Yeah, and so those are at least the two major things I want to bring up. And then again, just coming back to the wharfage fees, I think it was done through legislation, and so that's something that needs to be reviewed and reconsidered and reassessed. I hope that you have the time to sit and work on that, and then come back to the legislature to see how we can kind of, if we need to bring that back in to kind of offset some of the costs in air travel. And so that's something that I think we can look into. But that's all I had for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Donald Manglonia. I recognize Senator Paul Manglonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a lot of issues and questions, and so I'm afraid the chair might cut me off, so I'm going to just try to speed it up. First, Dongkulan Asizus Mausi, to you three for accepting the governor's appointment. You have a lot of work ahead of all of us at CPA, and I'm glad after hearing from you that you appreciate the challenge and yet have accepted to move forward with our governor and CPA. I totally agree with Mr. Azuzu. Communication, sitting down, working with agencies, the administration, the legislature is what it takes. And I just want to quote at this point from a letter by the Rhoda Chamber of Commerce President, Mr. Stephen McCoy. This was shortly after they increased the airport fees. I quote, "We implore you to CPA to consider the delicate balance between revenue generation and fostering economic development. We believe there are alternative methods to support our airports and their infrastructure needs while avoiding undue financial strain on our local businesses and residents. We respectfully request for a dialogue. Dialogue, okay? I just want to point that out, that it's a matter of just sitting down with the stakeholders, with the governor, and working together. And at this point, I want to mention that the governor, for example, wrote a letter 2 weeks ago. The administration asked CPA Board of Directors, please, before hiring an executive director, allow the 3 new board members when they come in to join the rest of you, because that will be 4 new board members, as Tony Cabrera mentioned earlier. There are only 3, 4 plus him and 3 of you. A simple request saying, allow the 3 to work with all of you so that we can find an executive director that can work with us. And, to quote from the governor's letter, he goes to the selection of this executive director is one that they will have like vision, and they have they're team oriented to work, successfully implement and supervise the new board's aims and objectives of improving CPA on behalf of the CNMI community, especially in light that CPA is now in fiscal crisis and seemingly on the verge of laying off employees and they're reducing hours. So even this request, the last board wouldn't even adhere.
Senator,
So I'm just saying that we need to work with the administration,
yeah,
with the legislature.
Senator, if you don't mind, this is a classic example of what not to do. Really, I mean, geez, the new board members come in with a different vision. You have a director that doesn't share the vision. That's it. We're back to square one, arguing again. I don't know, for some reason, when there's no problem, we tend to try to find a problem to create more work for us. It's ridiculous.
So I'm just pointing that out now, Mr. Zuzu, that now more than ever we need to work together at CPA. Look at, for example, in one of our hearings, I raised up the issue of the ARPA funding. With all this ARPA funding, CPA is here saying they don't have money to fix the leaks, as was pointed out, to put an escalator so that when you arrive, you don't have the elderly and the children don't have to carry their luggage and to walk down the stairs. And on Rhoda, I think Senator Meskin mentioned that we have to enter through the storage or the conveyor belt area. 10 years, the sliding door, the main entrance cannot be fixed. 10 years. So we've been entering through the side. I guess my frustration now, because this is not the first time I'm bringing this up, is, for example, the crane on Rhoda. Ship with several containers came. They had to leave because the crane was working so slowly, and they had to get out of the port. So they have to bring like 4 containers back to Guam. One time, like the situation we're encountering now with CUC, where we need a backup generator. They bought an emergency generator from Guam. The CPA had to pay, or CUC had to pay for a crane to be brought from Guam to Rota and then brought back after offloading the generator on Rota back to Guam again. And yet their contract with RT&T calls for RT&T to provide the crane. So these are the kind of things that calls for a CPA to reevaluate. I'm glad that I'm here today to reevaluate your contracts and all of this. But Madam Chair, I want to point their attention to a letter from one of the shipping company to CPA, and this was brought up more than 5 years ago. Let me give you an example. When a ship comes into Rota, they have this what they call line handling charges. So this shipper is complaining, shipping company owners complaining. We were charged for 5 men for 19 minutes at $2.65 per minute to secure our vessel to the dock. He's saying he could just send one guy from the boat and tie it up, but they were charged for 19 minutes, 5 guys, $2.65. On standby charges, we had reported that we would be in at approximately 5 p.m. when we heard that the barge was still in port on Rhoda and that we would be unable to unload, we took our time and arrived at the port at 5:45. We were charged $187 because we had people on standby waiting for us. Actually, everyone was involved in unloading the barge. The security charges. The charge for security at the port is $22.50 per hour. I am sure that the Saipan Shipping was also charged the same 22 per hour. Who provides port security, CPA or RTNT? They have all these charges, and then here's the one that I can understand: overcharging on the computation of revenue ton. The actual tonnage as provided to us by our suppliers on Saipan was 25 tons. The weight as provided by RTNT scale was 57 tons. By the time it came to Rhoda, it doubled 100%. So these are the kind of things that are discouraging shipping companies to come to Rhoda. But just to give you a better feel, here's this one voyage by this company. When they loaded on Saipan, it cost $900. The one ship load, right? $900 when they loaded on Saipan. But when it landed on Rhoda, and when you load, it's harder because you have to stack them carefully so they don't fall during the voyage. But yet, when it comes to Rhoda, to offload, that 900 charge on Saipan became $4,700. $4,700, and we wonder why. Well, here's one of the reasons: 17 pallets was weighted on Saipan at 22,000 pounds. That, when it came to Rhoda, it became 67,000 pounds. 5 tires weighing 200 some. These are truck tires. They weighed 1,100 on Saipan. When it came to Rhoda, it became 3,300. So for this particular voyage, 25 ton became 57 tons. So these are the reasons that discourage shipping companies from going to Rhoda, because they say, we're not going to deal with the stevedoring. Yet it's been 5 years, but it's never been addressed. And we keep raising this up. 5 months ago, I wrote a 19-page letter to CPA to answer me this 200 some questions. They didn't answer one question. They sent back links to their meetings or links to whatever regulation, and I'm supposed to figure all those out. So it's kind of frustrating when you consider that this is happening on Rhoda. So I asked that como manolmam zo, por favor, fan meeting na toto aji siya na tenda siya, dan aji siya gi na tauto na man into shipping da no gagagaw na inaking og problema. Gaya gini gi transition report. I hope that you guys have copies of the transition report, January 3rd, 2023 transition. Komentay tayo transition report no mampus no na this ka now. Ma-mention po this contract na ba? I quote from the transition report: "The root of this dilemma lies in the relationship by which CPA has for decades contractually authorized Rota Terminal and Transfer to serve as the sole exclusive terminal stevedoring entity permitted to operate at Rota's commercial port." Ini problema. This contractually authorized monopoly was, for reasons unknown, extended during or about 1996 for a further 25-year period with no public bidding or request for proposal, as far as Rota community members and the transition team have been able to discern. No, ti politika no mention Jesus mention pudi mampusa castigo para manotauta gizaluta that doesn't help then the other alternative is air cargo, because a lot of these goods are coming in through air now, because shipping companies decided it's not worth it to go to Rhoda. If you want to go to Rhoda, if you want me to send cargoes to Rhoda, charter me and you take care of the stevedoring. Who's going to do that? Right, so a lot of our vendors, stores in Rhoda, they order air cargo, and it doesn't help now with this increase in landing fees and airport fees. We have less flights, and And so now the prices we expect to go further up, and it doesn't help that also there will be less flights from Guam to Rota. So now our passengers are going to Saipan and then pay a flight to Rota, maski on tripo, right? So communication, and so I have a lot of questions, and I hope to be able to sit down with you in the future. But I'm going to end again with communication. No, you know that when Star Marianas decided to announce that they're going to increase their fees, we were in a Zoom meeting, and we had that Zoom meeting with them, with the mayor of Rota, supposedly so that they can tell us in 2 weeks they're going to increase the number of seats to Rota from Guam. So we were expecting during the beginning of the Zoom meeting, oh, good news, airlines going to announce three more daily flights from Guam. Lo and behold, they came out 2 days before that meeting, and maybe Star wasn't fully aware of the increase in fees. So in the meeting, they announced instead that they're going to increase the fares. Oh, so what I'm saying is, why isn't CPA meeting with Star Marianas? Why is it that the delegation or the mayor has to be talking to the airlines when these are MVA and CPA's role, right? So they should be aware. They should, in fact, be part of that Zoom meeting, but they're not. So they're not communicating. They're not talking. And then to top it off, this is the only domestic airline operating in the CNMI, but yet they have been in court for decades, I believe already. They're fighting in court and this is the only company. So why aren't they sitting down and trying to meet in the middle and swallow the loss, both of them, right? Meet in the middle and stop their lawsuit, but they continue to take each other to court. And so that's one of your challenges when you go in there, to bring in your attorneys and bring in both parties and stop all of this that's going on. And makes me wonder, is that the reason why instead of working with Star Marianas and Marianas Southern, remember Marianas Southern, the company that got $8 million, why is it that they couldn't, if they had given the 8 million, maybe give 4 million to Star Marianas? I don't know the detail, but the problem is, it seems like CPA is involved in trying to kill one airline over the other instead of trying to help both airlines. So that's the frustration when we hear all of this, because at the end of the day, it's the people of the cinema and the people of Rota in particular that's getting hurt on all of this, not only on the airfare but on the cargo cost. So if I see namjun si Jus Mosi na in accept testings wala mo na sina in examina tourists the economy largely is going to rise up again based on what CPA does. CPA works with MVA, CPA works with transportation, shipping, so it affects our economy tremendously. And I ask that you work together with our governor and with the legislature and with MVA and with all the stakeholders and to spend time on the island of Rota, por favor. The incentive pinadesi ni tautawgi sa no jangi mama dedisi gini da saipan gi freight zanuso no mizon mas manotota gi zaruta i container gin California Seattle watu saipan baratunya ki gin saipan watu luta si Jesus masi. Toda questiono para pachudes an opportunity para iningo. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Inihung ka bantino na makat problema gi CPA. Bula.
Yes.
Ti exclusive para CPA.
Right.
Mega na departamento man stratrago.
And Chairwoman, we as a group, I don't think we have the silver bullet to fix all these issues, but it's good to know what the issues are. We'll probably go in there and gather facts. I don't want to jump into conclusion on some of the decisions that were made, but I can tell you if it's wrong, we need to correct it. And we just need to use a lot of common sense on our decision making. I know that the people of Rota and Tinan are suffering. There may be a reason. There maybe if there's a reason, maybe maybe we can do something. And to me, I think the core issue is um, we need to take a look at our relationship with these people that are running the ports, and we want to find out if they're meeting up to their obligations, and if there's an issue, we want to find out what their plan to answer to the community, because it seems like what Senator Manglonia is saying is that if there's an issue, they cannot blame everybody but themselves. So there's got to be some kind of an accountability. And I want to try to see if we can clearly define if there's a problem with the weight system, for example, how is the company taking care of that? Or is it, Senator was just going to make a comment with maybe we're using a different weight system here than Rota, because kind of interesting that it doubles on the weight. So, but to me, those are fixable. It's just we need to sit down and take a look at what's going on. Things like what Senator mentioned about the water, the thing. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, somebody needs to fix that one right away. I mean, you don't
Zuzu, somebody gave me the solution for the water.
Yeah.
I'll tell you now. As Senator Dono was saying, when you land and
Yeah.
when you leave, that's the first thing you see,
Yeah.
the bucket of water.
Yeah,
Right. And then somebody posted on Facebook about the flower pots
yeah,
that are dying.
yeah.
So
yeah,
somebody this morning
yeah.
told me the solution.
Oh yeah,
Remove all those buckets of water,
yeah.
take those planter boxes where the
Oh.
plants are,
Uh-huh.
and put them underneath the leak,
Yeah.
so that as soon as they fall down, they water the plants.
Senator,
So that's a immediate answer to
yeah.
to,
And
what
also
you
kind of
confirm.
ridiculous, no, Senator, because I will appeal to the higher person up there to help the Lord. Maybe who can help us out a little bit on that one. But really, going back seriously, leaking, somebody can fall down, get hurt, we get sued. Oh boy. I mean, to me, that's a simple thing. I mean, there's got to be a budget to do maintenance, right? So it's the awareness of the manager of the port. Instead of staying in the office all day under the air condition, gotta walk around and see what's going on. What's the public experiencing? Like you said, if you see a bucket of water, what are we gonna do about this? Let's take care of this. Let's not make it like a permanent thing and it's okay. No, so a lot of it is just common sense, and we'll take a look at it again. Chairwoman, we're not the saint sent from the governor's office to solve the problem, but we will
Nor
do
do
our
we expect you.
best. We will do our best. We cannot also make irrational decision by saying those things that are happening are bad. We'll gather the facts and we'll do the best we can to correct and if there's any problem. Now, I want to bring in, though, into the board new ideas, because if we keep repeating the same problem all the time, oh my goodness, we're not going to go anywhere. So we'll try and come in with new ideas on how we can best, have the port operating in a better way. If I may, Chairwoman, I just want to kind of highlight some things before, I guess before the end of the hearing.
The hearing can end at 4:30.
So don't get me wrong. We welcome, like my colleagues are saying here, we need tourists in our islands.
Yes.
In the case of Chinese, we do need them also, but there's some things that we need to follow, and that has to do with security and things like that. But those could be handled by the governor's office. We're not security expert at the airport. Talking to a friend of mine who's a board member in the Guam airport, he says, Joe, the CNMI lost a lot of federal grants to improve the airport. And that kind of grants under the during the disaster, during the disaster plus the COVID could have been used to modernize your airport. So we lost an opportunity there. And I know that there's a lot of federal programs for the airport. And maybe a good idea to take a look at getting someone to do write-up, for grants to help the airport. That's something I might be looking into because of our financial situation. And a lot of times with this federal program, the money is there. It's just you need to let them know that it's there by writing a proposal and a grant request. So that's the comment that he made to me. Because I was wondering when I was walking through the airport, they said, "Hey, you got a very brand new cart," and then in Saipan, sometimes they're stuck. So, so another area, Chairwoman, that I want to really look at is the litigation that the airport is in.
Do you have a copy of the transition report?
No, but the
It's listed in the transition. There's
Yeah,
currently at least
yeah.
4
So in litigation,
lawsuits
right?
that CPA is involved in.
Yeah, in the litigation, it really all depends on how you look at things. But if you're litigating because of pride, you're gonna be broke. If you're litigating because what is right and what is fair, you need to know how to cut your losses and say, let's just shake hands and adios. But preventing litigation is the key. And I'm surprised because from what I heard, we're over lawyered at the airport. There's 2 lawyers. And geez, there must be a lot of complicated issues at the airport to have 2 attorneys. But I remember when there was a director of commerce and labor, we have 1 person assigned by the attorney general, 1 legal counsel, and that's it. So there may be a good reason. I want to take a look at that because I won't be surprised if we're in for thousands and thousands of dollars. And again, we need to look at it and see, is it worthwhile for us to continue to spend money on this or settle it? And, sometimes attorneys also have a personal agenda, right? So we have to watch that. We're not an employment agency forever. So the crane issue, definitely I'm going to take a look at that because if it's a grant, the expectation of the grantor is that the crane is operating. And so that's bad for us if it's not operating, because the federal government is going to say, guys, I gave you money and where is it? So it's a big problem. Meeting with stakeholders, I think, it's a very important part of our duty to get the different organizations that contribute to the development of our islands, the airlines and things like that. We really need to have an open conversation with them. And this is where I can come in as an experienced business person and as a banker and, the financial stuff, is that I know where they're coming from. And if they are asking more than what I think is fair, I can put them in their place and tell them, we're business people, we're here to make money, but at the same time, we have a community to take care. So a lot of work. This is just coming from me. And again, Chairwoman, I don't have the silver bullets. I have a lot of ideas. And we just have to wait and see, and time will tell.
Thank you. And that's what we've exposed, the limited issues that we have exposed in this committee or have made transparent to potential board members. Is just what is happening locally. CPA board still has to deal with FAA and federal regulations and the like. So you have your work cut out for you, should you be confirmed. We do have ideas as well on how to assist you do your jobs better as a sitting board member. So we would like to discuss those with you after, should you guys be confirmed. But in the interest of time, I will cut it today because Otherwise, we'll be here till 4:30 and give you all the problems that we know of. Um, CBP, everything. There's a whole litany of issues facing CPN and other departments. Unfortunately, we are limited in the legislature as to what we can do as well and how we can help. At this time, I'll recognize Senator Paul McLaughlin for the last time.
Thank you, mention, Madam Chair. CBP, just so you're aware, CBP is an issue that maybe CPA can work and assist us because, for example, on Rota, they never needed a person to go to Rota. They now with technology, right? You have video, you can send copies of your passport, of the passports of all the passengers, and they were doing that before. But because of Chinese, I guess, running over to Guam, it elevated the concern. But I'm sure that we can work that out so that those actually getting on the plane can go to Guam and they don't have to be burdened with the additional cost of the CBP official. And so at least now we don't have to subsidize, but before it was Senator Dono and I that were subsidizing the flight. But to this day, they continue to reserve at least 1 out of 8 seats. That's almost 10%, right? Every day to bring back there and bring back. So something that we need to discuss. That's also part of the increase in fares, right? Pues commuter terminal, I'll just end with that. Since 2018, after the typhoon, we have this container commuter terminal. 5 years later, we still haven't seen the wall go up right there. So I'm not saying that maybe they're on time, the contractor, but CPA doesn't have. I don't think they have in-house engineers, or somebody should be making sure that we don't have further delay, because 5-6 years later, our tourists still have this outhouse that they're using. I mean, how do you tell that to somebody coming in, going to Rhoda, and they need to use the restroom? You say, you see that small outhouse? That's where you use it. Why? 6 years ago, we had a typhoon. That's why. No, pues no.
You know, that's that issue has a lot to do with litigation that's happening. If we were to have an engineer on board, a lot of those little detail stuff could have been solved right on the field, rather than waiting until, for example, they completely pave the runway and then later on find scratching our head that there's a problem on it, and let's take the contractor to court. So little things like that could have been prevented and saved the CNMI government thousands and maybe millions of dollars. But again, negligence, we're not on top of things, so you pay for it.
Anything further, Senator? Okay, at this time, we will close the hearing for this morning. And I just want to, last final words to the nominees. It's a privilege to lead an organization. It's a privilege to lead people. And in my experience, good leaders are good learners too.
Yeah.
And they value a successful team, but they also give them the resources to be successful. And this committee, I think I can speak on behalf of the members here, has determined that you have the right attitude, the right fortitude to lead CPA as board members and to make sound policy decisions. And we are confident that we will advance your nomination to the full Senate for confirmation. I just wanted to let you know that ahead of time. I don't anticipate at this time that there be any resistance to it. We don't know. We never know if any of the other members who have concerns. But it's my privilege to let you know that we will advance your nomination for confirmation of the next Senate hearing. And I thank you for your time and coming in and answering our questions and sharing your personal thoughts and knowledge with us. You are hereby dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
and
Masi.
the members.
Mrs. Marcia.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, it is miscellaneous. Is there anything from the members? If not, I'd like to recognize Senator Donald Magnolia for the motion to adjourn today's
I
hearing.
move to adjourn today's committee meeting subject to your call.
Thank you. A motion has been made and it has been seconded. Are there any concerns or objections to the main motion? There being no concerns or objections raised, the motion hereby passes. It is now 12:44 p.m. This meeting is hereby adjourned.